Down the same alley as object removal is crowd replication, which is something almost everyone needs to do at some point. The oldest kind of crowd replication is to do split screens with a locked camera. Then we simply move people around and do split screens with a garbage mat to separate them. It works, but it's not that simple. First of all, because outdoor lighting can change quite a lot between takes. But more importantly, because people can't overlap, not even their shadows. If people have to overlap, we either have to animate garbage mats for everybody, which can be painstaking on a big shot, and a real problem if anybody has frizzy hair. Or we need a way to key it. The first way is a difference key where you do your shot, then a blank version of the shot, and then a difference key to get a mat. But a difference key is only the pixel by pixel difference in brightness, so it rarely works and actually creates a massive garbage matting burden in post. And the final mat will be a cardboard cutout. The only right way to separate people is with a portable green or blue screen. Often people only cover behind the actors, and that works fine for a thick crowd where you can't see anybody's feet. But just in case you can, we always do full figure green screen. And a rolled out cloth is fine. As long as you don't get it at a right angle to the sun, which hardens the wrinkles. So because of the wrinkles in the shadows, it's best to do crowd replication on a cloudy day. Then we simply do take after take in different positions, which would of course go faster if we used more people. And finally, a blank plate. Then the composite is literally a piece of cake. This here took less than 15 minutes. It's on purpose that we're doing the green screen on location so the actors get true scene lighting. If you brought people back to a green screen stage, you'd have to match the lighting, which you get for free in the real scene. Another thing you get for free on location is the natural change in perspective between takes. Because each of these takes has a slightly different perspective. If you just shoot people 100 times in the middle and copy them out, they'll all have the same perspective. In a level shot, you might get away with it. But from above, there's no cheating. So you have to shoot people exactly where they'll end up standing. When you're shooting passes, it's a good idea to make small marks on the ground for where you've been. Or you could end up covering spots too much or not at all. Then for every take, we shuffle actors and wardrobe. And obviously, if we had 20 extras, we could do this in maybe 5 passes, but we had to do over 20. You should also spread people out horizontally, so they're easy to layer in post. Then here's the clean plate, if you can call it that. And then we can composite each of the passes. So that's very effective. Although there are obvious repeats, so we should have used more people. And we go over the edge of the green screen in the top corners, so we'd have to garbage mat it or get a bigger green screen. But it works like a real crowd. And that's actually in large part because of the tape marks, which kept people at the right spacing. It's not important that you do it this exact way, but you have to remember where you've been. That's really all there is to crowd replication if the camera is locked. But it's a whole other ballgame if the camera is moving. We don't really consider pan tilt to be a moving camera because there's no real perspective change. So a simple 2D tracker on the main shot is all it takes to get all the other plates to move with it, whether it's a split screen or a green screen. Just make sure to shoot plates for all the people immediately outside the frame, and it's okay to pan tilt to get them. But if the camera is physically moving, that movement has to be redone in every single plate. And the only way to do that is with motion control. Then you simply shoot people over and over in different positions, and the camera move is the same every time. If you go to the camera control website, there are some famous examples of that, and this is the real kosher way to do it. But there is a different way, which is to match move a blank plate, and then place green screen footage on polygons in 3D. So first we shoot a background plate, which is usually wide and no problem to match move. Next, for the elements, we're shooting them on the same day to get the same lighting. But we're not in the same location, just at the same angle to the sun. We're shooting one person at a time because it's easier to deal with single people in 3D. We're just doing one person and swapping the wardrobe 15 times, so there's a danger of looking like an army of clones. We don't have to do multiple takes of each version, because we can just have the actor do a really long take. And get different versions by changing the start offset. If the actor is doing a choreography, we can also do small offsets to randomize the copying. It can be okay to shoot small groups of people. But there is a problem that people's feet will be offset in height when seen in 2D. So technically, some of the characters will be floating. If we're doing a crowd, it might not matter because their feet will be covered, but that's up to you. They also tend to lump together when they're shot in groups. So we're doing one at a time, and then we make 3 variations of each take for about 45 different versions. And copy them throughout the scene using something called instancing, which we're talking about on the last volume. And then here's the shot. So let's look at what works and what doesn't. On the huge upside, this way we can do crowd shots with 1 million people, and it wouldn't even be much work. Even though we're just using a single actor, it doesn't look half as much like an army of clones as you'd expect. You could get completely realistic with just 15 actors and some wardrobe swaps. On the downside, they're all shot from the same angle. So the perspective isn't technically correct, although the difference might be too small to matter. To make the perspective better, we first of all want to pick a station point that'll work for as many positions as possible. And around head height with a neutral lens works well for a forward-looking shot like ours. If people will be facing sideways, you'll also need to shoot your elements from that angle. It won't work to just shoot them from the front in live action and then shoot them from the side in 3D. Because they're just 2D, and the more we depart from the original angle, the worse it looks. Especially if you're shooting downwards, you'll have to do your elements from that angle. So the best thing you can do is to shoot in a way that doesn't challenge this limitation. Most importantly, don't do anything that has a dramatic change in angle. You can tolerate to be about 20 degrees wrong, so don't change your camera pan tilt more than 20 degrees. Instead, do subtle pushes or cranes. They're always safe. Also notice that the only place you can really see problems is in front, where people can look like cardboard cutouts. If you avoid having anybody very close to the camera, the perspective change on the rest of the characters is completely tolerable. You could also have real people within the first 10 meters. But you'd have to garbage mat them, which would be a major task. And lastly, consider that the more people you have, the better it works. And 10,000 people will look more believable than 20. We have about 2,000 here. Finally, we've so far assumed that people are standing still, which is the case in 99% of these shots. If they need to walk, the best thing is to stick to locked or pan tilt or motion control shots. It's difficult to do walking people the match move way, because when they walk on a green screen, both their size and their root point changes. Here's the blank plate we would put her into. But in the match move, this is just a 2D element hanging in 3D space. And there's no guarantee these two layers will work together. We're actually unbelievably lucky because there's not that much sliding. So the lesson is that if you have a very small camera move, and this one is too big, you can get away with it as long as people are shot from the right station point. Another thing that's much easier to do with locked shots or motion control is if any of the actors will end up behind live action foreground, like this railing. If she were a polygon, it would take major compositing work to put her behind the fence. In lock shots or motion control, it's as simple as shooting a matte pass with some green to pull a matte. So the bottom line is that lock shots or motion control are the most accurate and easiest to composite. But match moving the actors is cheap and easy, and you can do 10,000 people very quickly. We just shot this in our backyard.